Krenko Mob Boss versus Breya Etherium Shaper, Yarok the Desecrated, and Atraxa Praetors Voice. Hopefully we can keep up with these three. I did say in the lobby that this is a more casual game because I don't really hold out much hope for typical Modo players when we're playing Krenko Mob Boss. There's only so much Mono Red can do. We're going to keep that. We can play out pretty much every card and then going for a Wheel of Fortune. There are 3 other blue players at the table, so hopefully we can make a wheel stick. Oh, and the Yarok is starting things off with Leyline of Anticipation, so they'll be able to play with Flash throughout most of the game, seemingly. Alright, just some lands to start off with. We will play the land that we drew into as well, so at least we've got our 4 mana for Krenko. Could do with getting into some cheap goblins though. But having said that, I don't really mind getting down Impact Tremors and Goblin Bombardment over the first few turns. Allow other people to make themselves a threat first. Like I said, this is supposed to be a more casual game, so not really looking to get off a really fast turn 5 win or anything. A Mana Crypt comes down from the Atraxa player. Luckily won't help them get into Atraxa, but they might be able to get another rock into play that generates them a colour. It is a Flux Channeler. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, proliferates, so they've obviously gone for some kind of counters build here. They might have Infect in there, I don't know yet. Then Yarok passes straight over after dropping a land, and we'll get on with the Breya's turn. A Bitter Blossom from the Breya player, so they're going to have lots of tokens in play this game. And we get into Goblin Piledriver. Do we want to play Goblin Piledriver now and then go in for one of these things the turn after? I suppose we could do that. Yeah, seeing as how people are getting down threats nice and early, let's go in for a Goblin Piledriver here. And that comes down really quickly, so it looks like Yarok is not holding up counter magic. They are probably just holding up a 2 mana thing to do at the end of Atraxa's turn. Prismatic Omen from the Atraxa player now. Don't know if they're using that as some kind of combo or if they are just using that to help fix their mana. They are in 4 colours, so that might be the case, but you usually see this in lands matter decks, and I assume that Atraxa is not a lands matter deck. And then at the end of Atraxa's turn, throwing down a Sylvan Library, the Leyline of Anticipation already getting some good use. You can get round the table for much longer without playing things like this. The downside of these things is that they are not immediate card draw. And so if you play that and people know how good they are, they can eat removal. But not with Leyline of Anticipation in play. Playing a Scry land and going for the Scry one. And then we'll see if they've got anything else for 2 mana, probably at the end of Atraxa's turn again. Okay, Breya gets into that Fairy Rogue token, and then a Crucible of Worlds with 3 fetches in the bin. So that's a land drop to make every turn for the next, well, for the rest of the game, as long as they can keep Crucible in play. We draw into yet another land. Don't really like that. I think we'll go Goblin Bombardment. It's one of our sack outlets and is actually part of a combo. So I actually prefer this over Impact Tremors, but it's good to surprise our opponents with Impact Tremors after the Krenko has come into play. So let's try and keep these Fairy Rogues in check. Don't want our opponent to go too crazy with Fairy tokens. Well, they just decide to keep it in play until they've got a bigger threat to block there. Let's go for the Goblin Bombardment. I want to empty my hand before we go for the Wheel of Fortune, really. I actually quite like Impact Tremors and Kiki Jiki. Dropping a Guildmage's Forum. And if you spend mana, converted mana, on a multicoloured creature, then it gets an additional plus counter on it. So that's good with Atraxa and the Proliferate effects. Oh, and we've gone over to Yarok's turn, so they clearly didn't have anything to do. with that 2 mana that they had held up. Just throwing 2 cards back on top, they didn't take any life to the Sylvan Library there. And it's probably just play a land and pass, I would have thought. Okay, and what was that? Vindicate. That was a Vindicate onto Leyline of Anticipation, and that hurts because the Yarok player was clearly F6'd, so they've just been waiting for Atraxa's end of turn. I imagine they could have done something for 4 mana in response to that, but in order to keep the game moving along, they've yielded through all of these turns. So that might hurt Yarok, sets them back a turn at least. But we don't have to worry about instant speed stuff anymore. And then the Fairy poking us back, that's fair enough. We hit them, and we're at the highest life total here as well. Let's drop the mountain. Now then, Skull Clamp. Yeah, we can surprise our opponent with Skull Clamp and Impact Tremors after Krenko comes out. Does Krenko survive is the question. Well, have to play it out and see. We can always go for Kiki Jiki next turn and make a copy of Goblin Piledriver. And yeah, then maybe Kiki Jiki will become the next thing for people to worry about. So, do we want to get removal out of people's hands? Who do we want to go in at now? Let's go in at Atraxa. Goblin Piledriver has protection from blue, so currently they can't block with anything. But they do have something. Okay, that is a Swords to Plowshares going on to Krenko. So I dare say that they would have gone for that anyway. Usually want to play out Krenko with haste, but obviously we haven't drawn into any haste yet, so perhaps should have waited on Krenko in the hope that we would actually get into some haste. Oh, and didn't sacrifice it to Goblin Bombardment either. Could have dealt a damage to a Fairy there, but I was too busy talking. Now a Hall of Heliod from Atraxa as well, so I don't think they've gone Enchantress, but they obviously rely quite heavily on enchantments if they've gone for a Hall of Heliod. Don't think they have one in the graveyard. No, they've only got a fetch, and that's Swords. And they're going for some kind of multicoloured creature here. I don't think they can cast Atraxa though. Oh no, it looks like they can. Converting this into a coloured source and then... Oh yeah, of course, they've got the Prismatic Omen. Yeah, so they can make any colours they need. And Atraxa will come down here with a plus counter on it. So Atraxa ought to draw people's attention now that Krenko's gone. Followed by a Sol Ring with the floating mana. Well, at least Atraxa only has 2 cards left in hand, but they've got plenty of mana here. The Flux Channeler will proliferate another counter onto Atraxa as well. Then the only thing that Atraxa can proliferate is herself, so now 3 plus counters on there, and 3 direct hits from this thing. Spells certain doom for someone. Phantasmal Image. Now, this probably goes on to Atraxa as well, doesn't it? Because Atraxa is a very good blocker for Atraxa. And yes, that comes down. They can't make use of that proliferate, but it is a good blocker, like I said. And then Seeker's Squire. When it enters the battlefield, it explores. That's a 1-2. And our opponent reveals off the top an Eternal Witness, so now they can make use of that proliferate, can't they? By making this thing a 2 mana 3/4. That's not bad. Oh, and now a Jace the Mind Sculptor with plenty of blockers in the way, so yeah, there's a couple of threats at the table now. And then going for the Brainstorm, as the Mind Sculptor usually does. Then going for one of the myriad of fetches from the graveyard. Got to keep those land drops up, especially in a 4-colour deck. Alright, we get into the 6th land for getting out our commander again, so that's good. And we need to decide now if we want to go for Skull Clamp and Impact Tremors or the Kiki Jiki. I think Kiki Jiki, so that we can make a copy of the Piledriver. And then if we go for our commander next turn and it gets targeted, we can always go for a copy of our commander with Kiki Jiki, keep the token copy, and it will have haste and we'll be able to actually make some goblin tokens ready for the Skull Clamp. So yeah, let's go for Kiki-Jiki. And then we'll make a copy of the Goblin Piledriver. Our Goblin Bombardment is going to be handy here, I think. So let's go in at Jace the Mind Sculptor. Our opponent can block here. I'm not going to go in with this Goblin Piledriver because I want to keep it in play. And they can double block with the fairies anyway. Alright, so in response to that, we'll get rid of the fairy first in combat, because our Piledriver will die there. And then, before we sacrifice it to Kiki-Jiki's ability, we'll get rid of one of these rogues as opposed to pointing the damage at Jace directly, because we want to encourage these Atraxas this way. So, Atraxa swinging in, getting blocked by a fairy, and then this Atraxa goes in at Jace. That's the way things should go, I would have thought, but I'm not going to assume what my opponents are going to do. I'm just going to pave the way and keep my fingers crossed. Oh, now a doubling season, and that Flux Channeler doing some work here. Yeah, doubling season, I think, works with Proliferate quite well. Ah, and then some politicking going on as well, putting one on here also. Yeah, I think doubling season and Proliferate goes well together because it's effects that doubling season cares about. I don't know how that works. I'm sure we'll soon find out. We'll find out at the end of the turn, actually. Let's see where this Atraxa is aimed. I have a feeling it might be at us because we're at the highest life total. But it should be at Jace, really. Yes, going in at Jace. Oh, with both of those. So, at least 2 points of damage going on to Jace here. And just deciding to let Jace go so that they can keep a fairy rogue. That's probably wise because they're going to lose Jace either way, so probably leaving a fairy rogue in play to block these Atraxas is a good idea. Now, there's 4 pluses on here and 3 plus counters on here, so 4 and 3. Let's see if Proliferate gives double the counters with a doubling season in play. Yes, it does. So 2 plus counters on there. Atraxa is now a 10-10 with Flying Vigilance, Lifelink and Death Touch. Not putting one onto the human this time. Nissa Vastwood Seer from Yarok. Definitely going to get into the land drop this turn then, unless they've made one already. I lose track. Well, it's their turn 6, so I don't know if they've made a land yet or not. Then the Atraxa going back in at Breya. Yeah, that does surprise me. I thought that was heading in our way. We don't look like as big a threat as other people at the table do, clearly. But they're just going to take it. This doesn't count as commander damage, so I think I would take that as well. Because it's this massive 10-10 that we're worried about. But Yarok and Breya shouldn't have any difficulty in removing an Atraxa, but maybe in a more casual setting, the Yarok and Breya players don't run much removal. And just putting a plus counter on the human, not going for any politicking by putting one over here. Alright, Demonic Tutor from Breya. And she's already got 6 cards in hand. And can make a land every single turn, so that's quite worrying. What is Demonic Tutor going to go for? Maybe a board wipe? Alright, and then going for a land out of the graveyard after the Tutor, so they will have 4 mana available, which is the typical amount that a creature wipe will cost. Yeah, a Damnation, so I dare say that's what they tutored for. In response, let's go. That's a shame to lose Kiki-Jiki, but it's good to get the Atraxas removed, so let's sacrifice our creatures and we'll go after one there, and we'll go for one at Yarok as well. And then it's fingers crossed that we don't see any counters. Alright, we don't see any counters there, so thankfully we didn't sacrifice our stuff for nothing. A Mog War Marshal, that's the type of thing we want to see. So let's just try and knock Summoning Sickness off of our commander. And we'll pass the turn like that. Then next turn we can go in for Mog War Marshal and Skull Clamp. Start doing some stuff there. Okay, it looks like Atraxa is going to start again from exactly where she left off. Coming in with 2 plus counters thanks to this land. The Guildmage's Forum. And then the Proliferate will bump that straight back up to an 8/8, I think. Liliana, the Last Hope, that is -2, -1, I think. Up to 1 target creature, yes. We're going to have to watch out for that with our goblins. Oh, but they actually minus down on that, so what's the minus? Top 2 cards into your graveyard, return a creature from graveyard to hand. So they've got a few things to choose from there. They milled, retreat to Kazandu, and a Jade-Light Ranger. And I don't know what they returned there. I'll have a look at the game log in a minute if we don't see it here. Oh yeah, it was the Phantasmal Image, so that comes straight back down. And probably, again, a copy of Atraxa, so the board wipe was all for naught apparently, but gets things out of people's hands at least. And then Vampiric Tutor for the Yarok. And then of course this Atraxa will proliferate, so certainly not going to sacrifice Krenko to put a plus counter on that thing. Bitter Blossom continuing to make good blockers against those Atraxas. I'll hammer its Archive, that's a very good card, a pet card of mine actually. Problem is with this thing, it doesn't do anything on its own, and it doesn't do anything when it enters, but if you have time to play it, and you get to take advantage of it, then it's got a hell of an upside to it. Sensei's Top coming down. I always forget about Sensei's Top for multiplayer. It's banned in 1v1. Followed by Copy Artifact. Sol Ring maybe? Probably copies Sol Ring, doesn't it? No, they want 2 Sensei's Tops. That's interesting. I don't know if you can do some kind of combo with Copy Artifact and Sensei's Top. I've no idea. Okay, we managed to untap with Krenko. There is an Aggravated Assault as well. Let's go... I think we have to go Mog War Marshal and try and set up Skull Clamp. Yeah, let's concentrate on Mog War Marshal as opposed to Impact Tremors. We don't want anyone looking in our direction more than we'd like them to. So that comes down. Then we'll go for the Skull Clamp now, just in case we get into a cheap Goblin. I just want to make a land every turn, preferably. So let's go after that Mog War Marshal. When that dies, it's going to make another token, so we don't go down a Goblin here. Alright, and there is the land for the turn. Then we've got a Pashalik Mons. Really want some haste. Let's go for Goblin with the Cavern of Souls. Now then, this is sacrifice it to create more Goblins, and whenever another Goblin dies, it's 1 damage to any target. That's good for next turn, I think. Let's make some Krenko Goblins. Let's just go for 1 more Skull Clamp before we do anything else. Alright, there's another land, and a Goblin Ringleader isn't awful either, so we'll go Impact Tremors and pass the turn. Didn't want to go Impact Tremors before activating Krenko because I had no idea if we would actually be able to play something off of Skull Clamp. Arcane Signet from Atraxa, only 1 card left in hand. I am in no rush to get down this Wheel of Fortune, especially now that we've got Skull Clamp online. And yep, Atraxa swinging in at us. I'm surprised no one's swung in at us before now, to be honest, but we've only just begun to look like a threat, I suppose. So we'll take our hit for 8. Atraxa is going to become a 10/10, and we will be able to deal with her if we make enough Goblins. Oh, a Spark Double coming down. And it isn't legendary. If the permanent is legendary, yeah, that was the clause I was thinking of there, so I was just making sure I remembered what Spark Double does. This might come down as another copy of Atraxa. 2 Atraxas on one side of the board. Oh, actually, okay. Going for Liliana twice instead. We can Goblin Bombardment one of these. Is it a +1? Yes, it's a +1. Going after Krenko there. We'll see where this Atraxa swings in because it will dictate what we do with these Goblin tokens maybe. Although I might just keep them in play and swing in at Liliana instead. Okay, going for 2. -2, -1s. Can someone deal 1 damage to Krenko is the question. That is another Explore. a 2/2 with Explore. And in response to that, looks like the copy artifact is going for drawing a card. So they will have that copy artifact on top of their library now. And then going for drawing into the copy artifact. And they'll just draw into Sensei's top next turn, so yeah, don't really understand the point of that, but maybe our opponent is doing something that I don't understand. And now the Atraxa coming in at us as well. So, yeah, I'm actually going to leave the Goblin tokens in play, I think. Can Pashalik Mons do damage to any target? Okay. So we can double up on damage with that. And the fact that people are swinging in at us suggests that there is no removal in either player's hand. Problem is that the Breya player has lots of cards in hand as well. Followed by more Proliferate. What's the limit break on this thing? -7 gives you an emblem. Oh, and that's the Endless Ranks of the Dead, I think. Yeah, 2 plus the number of zombies you control. I think that's what that card's called. Alright, Stroke of Genius during the main phase for Breya. That's 2 cards being drawn. Going up to 10 cards in hand. They might be fishing for a board wipe again. And then that's Breya colours. So it's 10 cards in hand. Breya will come down with some Thopters. They have not held up Breya's ability. And where can they point the damage on this thing? Player or Planeswalker, so they might want to think about holding that up for the Liliana. Although they might be trying to count on us with our goblins. Alright, so we'll get back round to our turn. And Krenko manages to untap again. Get into another land. Didn't think I'd be drawing into this many lands in this deck. I've actually got 38 because during testing I couldn't draw into lands with this deck for some reason. And I just assumed it's because there wasn't much card draw, but we just so happened to have started with a wheel, and we've also drawn into Skull Clamp. Let's go for the Pashalik Mons. And Impact Tremors will trigger. We'll be dealing a damage to everyone here. Then activate Krenko. And we get a Goblin token per Goblin we control, which is currently 6. So that's 6 damage to everyone with Impact Tremors. Unfortunately, we've got a lot of lifelink going around. And we don't have any haste either. We could swing in at some Lilianas, but we don't have a means of getting past the lifelink. This is the good thing about Atraxa. Vigilance and lifelink is really good. You gain life from swinging in, and you gain life from blocking as well. Okay, so let's go for a clamp onto a Goblin. And this will die, and we'll be able to deal the damage to one of the Lilianas at least. We could clamp a few times and get rid of Atraxa actually. Oh, in fact, this is Phantasmal Image, so let's just target that and it'll die immediately. Forgot about Phantasmal Image and that ability for a second there. So had I remembered that, we could have done that a long time before the Proliferate started going on, but makes this player a little bit more of a threat at least. We get into Goblin War Driver. Do we want Goblin War Driver? I think I might actually, because it makes the Goblins more of a threat when we swing in. So let's go for that. Impact Tremors triggers again. Then I'm actually going to go for the swing in with these Goblins. We'll go at the 6 Loyalty Liliana, and then whichever Goblin gets blocked, we can sacrifice with Goblin Bombardment. So we'll go like that. And sacrifice the one that's been blocked. And then Pashalik Mons can deal another damage to... I'm actually going to go after the Thopter here, because I think my opponent, the Breya, might go for a Lightning Bolt onto, or is it -4/-4 onto creatures? Yeah, well they can kill off Krenko either way. So we'll encourage them to kill off some of their own artifacts if they want to activate that. At least we're getting to see what we want to do with Krenko though. And then let's go for a clamp. Breya scooping up to that. So clearly they were reliant on their ability. They're down to 11 life. Yes, what were we doing? Skull clamp onto a tapped goblin. And I actually fancy our odds a little bit here now because Breya was the only player with some actual stuff in hand. I think they had a full grip. Charlotte Mon's going to do some damage to that Liliana. And we're just clearing lands off the top, so this Skull Clamp is doing a lot of work for us here. We'll get rid of that Liliana finally. Alright, Gauntlet of Might is some nice ramp. So let's just leave it there. And we'll get rid of some mountains, I think. Yeah, Hall of Heliod. Yeah, Hall of the Bandit Lord. I might have said Hall of Heliod there. Hall of the Bandit Lord is a really good haste enabler, even though it costs us life. And Handwear Battlements is good if we've got a surplus of red mana as well, which we will with Gauntlet of Might. So can our opponent do anything is the question. They would need to buff this up with the 2 cards in hand. So this would have to be 13 power. Oh, an Evolution Sage. Ugh, we need to get rid of the Atraxa. So what's going to happen here? That's going to be a 12-12. But our opponent doesn't have any cards in hand. And they don't have any fetches. They don't have Crucible. Yeah, I'm going to allow it with the Evolution Sage. I'm putting... Yeah, it's 2 against 1 now, as it probably should be. Proliferating a counter onto here and onto here. And we're going to be at 20 points of commander damage to this Atraxa here, as well as taking a 24-point life swing. Now then, I think we might actually have to get rid of some more Goblin tokens, unfortunately. So let's go... We'll get rid of the Evolution Sage, because that's going to be a real pain for us, although we could just... Our opponent has to top deck lands to make that useful. Let's target the Liliana first, because I don't want them gaining any card advantage from that. So that's 2 damage from Goblin Bombardment and the Mons. Just getting rid of this before Atraxa proliferates it again. And then 1 more point of damage from the Goblin Bombardment, and with the Pashalik Mons we'll just aim at the Atraxa player. Now they've still got the Sylvan Library, so we're really not out of the woods yet. But we'll see what our opponent does. Okay, Clever Impersonator, so some kind of strange Explore clone deck by the looks of it from Yarok. Haven't seen Yarok yet, have we? This probably comes down as Atraxa again. Yeah, another copy of Atraxa to deal with. Followed by Oracle of Muldaya. We'll see what's on top of our opponent's library. They're getting into Birds of Paradise, but they've got another 2 cards to look at with Sylvan Library, so we're not necessarily going to get away with doing whatever we like here. And we've got this Atraxa to face down as well, don't forget. Then this thing comes in at us. Do we just take it to keep as many goblins in play as possible? Yeah, I mean, we died to this Atraxa swinging in at us anyway. No, I think we'll just block it just to play it safe. I would like to keep as many goblins in play as possible, but we'll get rid of that Evolution Sage. Pashalik Mons and Goblin Bombardment doubling up again. Alright, and then more proliferation by this Atraxa, and we'll see if they continue to double team. Yeah, giving each other plus counters. Wow, we've drawn into all of our mana and pretty much no goblins this game. Do we just want a Wheel of Fortune? Do we want a Gauntlet of Might, maybe? I don't think we care too much about attacking. Yeah, let's go Snow-covered mountain into Gauntlet of Might for more mana. There's no other mountains at the table, so that's one of the benefits of everyone running blue all the time in Commander. Then we'll try the Goblin Ringleader and see what we get off of that. Usually set up a combo with that. With the Goblin Recruiter, I think it is. Not really a combo, it's just good card advantage. Yeah, we only get into one creature out of that. Oh, Chaos Warp we could have done with. But it gets another Goblin into play at least. So let's go for Krenko first of all. Yeah, perhaps should have just gone for Skull Clamp. We would have gotten into that. What's it called? The Chaos Warp. There's no way to shuffle here either, is there? Oh well, doesn't look like we're winning this one. Let's go for... Alright, Skull Clamp onto the token. Let's Goblin Bombardment. How much damage can we do to that Atraxa? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 goblins. 8 goblin tokens, which is 2 damage apiece. Yeah, let's just go for that. We have to here. Sacrifice the clamped goblin. Yeah, Pashalik Mons has done some work this game. Okay, there's a Goblin War Party. That is a buff and haste. Don't think we can get rid of... Yeah, not with that lifelink. We just have to get rid of that Atraxa. So let's continue along the same path. Alright, Goblin Matron actually sets us up for a combo. If we go for the Goblin, that can get us into the red mana per sacrifice Goblin. That goes infinite with Aggravated Assault. As long as we can have haste and enough Goblins in play. Yeah, so that might set us up. We can't do anything with the Thornbite Staff. We don't have the mana. So we'll just carry on with Skull Clamp. And there is a Dragon Fodder for more goblins. Then a Trash Master gets rid of artifacts. Yeah, that's even more goblins. Alright. We're not getting into the things we need here. If we can untap next turn, then we should be alright. But it's just dodging this Atraxa currently that's the issue. And there it is, the one that gives us mana. So let's just continue and then we can have a think about what we want to do. And then after all that, we're going to have to hold back our attacks as well because of all the damage that's on this side of the board. I do want to attack in here, but it's only 7 damage really if we hold back the Goblin Ringleader, so yeah, we'll just leave it at that. And then we can get rid of some... Well, we'll get rid of a mountain there. We only drew into one other mountain. Get rid of the Bandit Lord. The Wheel of Fortune we don't need. Trash Master I don't think we need. Warrant Instigator we might be able to make use of. We'll get rid of the Greaves. The Rabble Master... Yeah, I think we're going for a combo win, aren't we? So, yeah, Thornbite Staff combos as well, doesn't it? Let's just get rid of the token generators. We'll have to hope that our Krenko stays in play. Ruby Medallion. Yeah, if we're looking for a win next turn, let's get rid of the Mountain. And the War Party. Yeah, right, so big thank you to my opponents for playing that out. They're being great sports here, being very patient. With Thornbite Staff, we didn't have the mana to play and equip it. We do next turn. Whenever a creature dies, we untap a creature. That obviously goes on Krenko. So we can play a bunch of tokens out with Krenko, sack one of them to Goblin Bombardment, or kill it with Skull Clamp. Although we've got a Lord in play, haven't we? The Gauntlet of Might, so that switches off Skull Clamp. But we've got a sack outlet anyway. So we can kill off one of our creatures, untap Krenko, keep doing that forever, and we'll have infinite tokens. And infinite tokens entering triggers impact tremors an infinite number of times. So I think that's the play next turn. Failing that, we can try aggravated assault. Chromatic Lantern comes down for Atraxa. But Atraxa coming into play without haste, I don't think will do anything for our opponent. Just getting themselves straight back into that Atraxa. Yeah, Atraxa with the Guild Mage's Forum is a very difficult thing to work around. Our opponent's been a real thorn in our side with this Atraxa. It's come down consistently over many turns. It's just fingers crossed at this point that Yarok can't take us out of the game. Alright, there's a Gaia's Blessing on top. We're not really worried about that, although it is more card advantage. They put a land on top and a Twilight Prophet back on top as well. So now 4 cards in hand. They're down to 10 life thanks to our impact tremors. Okay, a Cruel Tutor. That might change things then. If our opponent's going for another board wipe. They can't go for Cyclonic Rift, thankfully. Just really keeping my fingers crossed that Gauntlet of Might stays in play. Okay, it's Eternal Witness back on top, so what is their aim here? Yeah, I don't really know what they're after getting back with Eternal Witness. They play the Birds of Paradise that we saw on top of their library before. Is this on top? Ah, you put it on top. Okay, so didn't realise. I thought this was the one that goes into your hand. That goes on top. So it is the Eternal Witness that they tutored for. Sylvan Caryatid as well. Looks like our opponent's got nothing. So it looks like a win for us next turn. And then of course Atraxa swinging straight in at us. And continuing to put plus counters onto Atraxa and the, what is this called? Tishana's Wayfinder. Alright, now then it's time to go off here. Let's go for a single red mana onto the Skirk Prospector. We've got a couple of options here. We can go in for Aggravated Assault, sacrifice the generated tokens to the Skirk Prospector to make 5 mana and untap all the creatures we control, including Krenko, and do it all over again. Or we can just go for this Thornbite Staff, which I do intend on doing, so let's go for the Thornbite Staff. We'll play and equip that. And Atraxa sees it, decides to scoop. So all we do is activate Krenko, get a bunch of impact tremor triggers. If we didn't have impact tremors, this would still work because we've got Goblin Bombardment. We'll aim a point of damage at our opponent, and they see that as well. Yeah, all we do there is activate Goblin Bombardment, point it at our opponent, sacrifice a Goblin, and that will untap Krenko with the Thornbite Staff because a creature has died, and we'll be able to tap Krenko again and make infinite Goblins for infinite damage, either from the Goblin Bombardment or the Impact Tremors. We've also got Perforos in the deck as well for the same reason. So it's a good game to my opponents. I'm incredibly grateful to them for being so patient. I've had a real rough time of it recently trying to get multiplayer games, so even more than usual actually. So very grateful to them for sticking that out. We had a very long turn before we ended up winning. Had trouble getting into a few things there. We wanted haste and we wanted some more goblins. I've got 29 creatures in the deck, most of which are goblins. Might have to up that and forego things like removal because we do need card draw, we need ramp, and we need goblins. So it might be that removal has to leave the library. But I think this Krenko deck will only compete in a more casual format. It's just too slow and too delicate. You need Krenko in play, and Krenko eats removal because everyone knows that you can do things like this with it. So if you have a more competitive meta, don't expect to be running Krenko in that. You need to be running it in a more casual format, like I said, and that's what we were all playing today. So hopefully you all enjoyed this one. Please leave a like and a subscribe, as it helps the channel to grow. and it tells YouTube to push the videos. And yeah, let me all know what you think of the deck. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.